listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Harry Brelsford from SMB Nation with our ongoing webinar series. It's morning on the West Coast. It's actually evening where myself and our special guest are located. So we're way over at UTC 123, completely on the other side. So it's pretty interesting. It's a big wide world. Today's topic is update the next SBS Part 2. Today is May 15th. Next slide, please. The next slide's coming up. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Be sure to use the chat feature to ask your questions. We actually have quite a large audience today, so we want to make sure that we get to all the questions and we get them documented. Remember, next week we'll have our weekly webinar. Next time it'll be at our traditional 10 a.m. Pacific time. Today we put it at 9 a.m. to accommodate a worldwide audience, to be quite honest. For those of you that I haven't met, again, Harry Brelsford, founder of SMB Nation, heavily immersed in small business server and SMB IT Pro topics everywhere. Next slide, please. Just a quick slide that'll be coming up on the SMB Nation community. Again, I realize most of our weekly attendees very much know who I am and who the SMB Nation community is, but basically want to make sure that we check off on all the newbies. And if we could, let's go ahead and move to the next slide, please.
Oh, Harry, we actually have a couple of polls.
By the way, while that slide, yeah. Okay. And good morning, Heather.
Hey, Harry, sorry to interrupt.
Evening, but Heather, do you want to go ahead and put the poll questions up? That's perfect.
Sure. So we're going to have 3 polls.
Yeah, go for it, Heather.
And we'll have a minute each.
Hey, and Heather, while you're doing that, okay, thank you, Heather. While the polls are coming up, Heather, another housekeeping item is I am overseas and I am in a rural area, so the bandwidth is a little spotty, so everybody please forgive me. I'm having the guest actually present the deck, so forgive me on the bandwidth. But the first poll question that's come up is how many staff you employ, and you select one of the options from the 4 answers. Folks, if you could go ahead and do that now, the old stopwatch. All right, Heather, a couple more seconds, and we're ready to close it out. Why don't we close it out, Heather? And the result has us with 3/4 of the individuals are 0 to 5, double digits for 5 to 15. And look at that, it's percent with over 30 employees. And we actually have a fair number of attendees today, so that's actually an accurate poll. Heather, you have another question you'd like to present? Let's go ahead and do it. How many customers do you have? Folks, there's 4 answers to select from. How many customers do you have? And while we're doing that, Heather, we'll give them just another second. I'll tell you where I'm located. It's actually winter, which is very strange. I'm below the equator, and it's actually winter and the sun's going down versus back in Seattle and up in the northern regions. It's some of the longest days of the year coming up. Heather, let's go ahead and close out the poll. And here comes the answer. So there we are. Our traditional salary surveys map very closely to this, that we've always felt that you individually have 24 customers. And so this would map exactly to that. I'm very impressed, though, again, with this sort of, I don't know what I'm trying to say, this double hump. We've got a camel here with 28% of you having 50 plus customers. So that's very interesting to me. Heather, do we have one more question? All right. What is the customer's average size and employees? Again, 5 answers. So essentially, I think the intent here, folks, if you want any clarification, would be employees with computers or endpoints would be the intention of this question. The actual employees, say on a farm, could be a very large number, but the actual staff using computers could be something like 15 endpoints supporting 150 workers. So maybe just to clarify, if you could think in terms of the average size of employees that represent endpoints. Give that just a couple seconds. How's the weather out there, Heather? How's the weather back home in Seattle? I heard it's been sunny and warm.
Yeah, we've been getting up to about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 85 Fahrenheit, which is it's a little early for us in the year, but it's cool and gray today, which is a nice change.
Oh my, okay, that is a nice change. Here come the results. Okay, so this is actually very encouraging. Our historic survey data, 7 years of survey data, shows about 15 endpoints. This not only confirms that zone, but I would offer it may be slightly above 15. I mean, that's over half, or 11 to 25. Well, I guess if you took midpoint, it's somewhere 15-ish in the upper teens. It does confirm what we know to be true, with maybe just a little bit of skewing to additional desktops above 15. So that's pretty cool. Heather, is that the end of the questions, and are we ready to return to the deck?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. So if we could bring the next slide up of myself posing in Abu Dhabi at the airport. I take a selfie in every airport, so you're going to see a photo of me. Actually, it's not the long arm of Harry making it a selfie. We actually had someone presenting it. Heather, if you could let me know if that slide's up. Again, I might be having some bandwidth issues. Okay, so if we could re-up the slide, gentlemen. Basically, while the slide's coming up, I'll go ahead and tell you my point's very simple. We've introduced SMB Nation. The point I want to make with the slide of myself and a selfie is my company over the past few months has been on the road. We're doing a 30-country partner event called Get Modern, where we meet with the staff of Microsoft and Intel. And cumulatively, we've traveled just over 100,000 miles, with about another 6 weeks to go. And the intent is to really feel the pulse of the disruption, the change in the marketplace. If we could have the next slide, please, I'll talk a little bit more about disruptions. But, just wanted to make a point that we're out there doing it, folks, and really trying to tap into what's going on. On the next slide, the disruption slide, basically, what I want you to do is, just like we did with the last webinar, is go ahead and embrace the change that's in front of us. We are in a period of confusion. I just read, I'll tell you, I've got a whole new talking point. Nick and Rhett, you'll appreciate a whole new twist on this, because I know you've kind of heard, you already know my sermon. But on the flight down, my overnight flight down here to Cape Town, I read the Financial Times. It's a paper I typically don't read. I'm kind of a Wall Street Journal guy. And there was a, good Lord, 1,500-word article on the new woman CEO of IBM, and how IBM is going through a cataclysmic reorganization again. She said a couple of things in this rather lengthy analytical article that, hey, we're in technology, we have to reinvent ourselves every 10 years. I think everybody on the call knows that and has said that, but it was interesting to hear that echoed from the incoming or established CEO at IBM. And then she also went on and on and on about the disruption caused by the cloud business model for IBM itself. I mean, IBM went through a couple of different reorgs, going from mainframe to client server to then to services, and now they're trying to work with cloud. And one of the challenges they face is there's now the perception in their world that nobody ever got fired for buying Amazon, and that's a big spin on a statement we all know from the past of nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. So bottom line is you're not imagining this. It's time to reinvent. We're right there with you. That's why I'm putting on some serious miles. Jennifer Hallmark on my staff is, and we have a couple of other instructors helping us. And we're out there not only reinventing ourselves, but whenever there's chaos, what I know to be true is ultimately a hybrid business model, and that's what is underlying theme of today's conversation. Post-SBS allows for the new opportunities. The services will be critical to post-SBS success. Folks, there's only so much we can do if service delivery, and I kind of default to management consulting and adding value at what I call layer 8 of the OSI model on top of applications. If that's not in your DNA, then we need to have a very different conversation, because unfortunately that's kind of where it's going. Now, one thing in terms of services I think we all can do, and it can add about 20% to your bottom line, is the training. Whenever you introduce new technology, we always forget the training. I know it's like a lawyer writing wills. It's not exciting for some people, but it's great revenue. Next slide, please.
And Harry, we actually have a couple more poll questions.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Absolutely, Heather. Good timing. Great audience today, by the way. Just real hunger. So perfect. Folks, don't forget to use the chat feature to ask your questions. How many of these customers are still running Windows Server 2003 or SBS? Folks, if you could take a second to go ahead and answer that. Okay, Heather, that's probably enough time. We gave them 4 selections. Heather, if you could bring up the results. Wow. So we have it skewed to the lower side. Now, part of it may be we're with a fairly select audience today. The number in the real world's probably a little bit higher, but folks, is what it is. So 10% or less is almost the first standard deviation, or approaching 2/3. 11 to 20%, 20% of the audience, and then it breaks down from there. So very, very interesting. Heather, do you have another question that you want to present? How many do you think a hybrid solution would work well for? Hybrid solution, folks. Straight down the middle, combination of on-premises technology plus cloud technology. 4 answers to choose from. Again, 0 to 10, all the way through 51% or higher. And Heather, let's just give that a few more seconds and then bring up the answers. Okay, how many do you think a hybrid solution would work well for? Skewed to the upper spectrum. I actually like this. So 33% between 21 and 50%, and the overall lead goes to above 51% at 38%. So that's actually really good news. Okay, great, Heather. Let's any further questions, or shall we continue, Heather? We do have a question. How many have started discussing with you a migration plan and options? So migration planning from SBS, 2003 is right in front of us in terms of that deadline, but there is a chat feature that came up about a chat feature about could it be all editions of SBS. And SBS is one of those very strange situations where you have end of support on the one version and end of life on all versions. So it's actually a little bit of a unusual situation in the industry. Folks, if you could answer that, Heather, a couple more seconds, let's bring up the results. Okay. And we'll get right back to that slideshow. Folks, really appreciate you hanging in there. We're just trying to kind of make it an interactive webinar as best we can. And so how many of you have started discussing the options? And it looks like the largest numbers, 21 to 50%. 21 to 50%. The audience size is 29% on that range. Very good. Let's go to the slide on fact gathering, and then we'll get to hot or not. And pretty quickly we'll talk about the solution. So with the fact gathering, which will be coming up in a second, basically what I'm saying is that folks, over the last couple of months, since the last webinar, we've taken this pretty seriously. And we have had conversations at the Get Modern tour that we're doing worldwide, our U.S. PowerShell tour, where our friend and yours, Carl Palachek, is currently en route to Denver, Colorado for the PowerShell training tomorrow, Friday, in Denver. We have presented and had conversations at some industry conferences, such as the SMB Forum from Channel Pro Magazine, our friends, and then, you know, quite frankly, just countless conversations. Hey, Heather, if you could double check if we can bring that slide up. But the point is this, is that we've been engaged on a United Nations peacekeeping fact-gathering tour using a lot of different vehicles, the global and the domestic workshop tour, some industry conferences, and again, countless conversations. And it's very interesting what we're seeing. Give you an example on hot or not. If we can jump to the hot or not slide when that comes up. Have a slide about hot or not. And essentially what we're saying with hot or not is right now the Office 365 component, the service, the solution is very hot, and quite frankly the acceptance overseas is without reservation. Where I see the reservation to Office 365 is domestically, and for whatever reason it's actually not on the East Coast. The conversations we had on this tour back on the East Coast in New York and other places, the Office 365 acceptance was dramatically higher than the Midwest or the West Coast, and I have no idea why that is, but on the West Coast there seemed to be a reluctance to embrace 365 full on. And then what everybody agrees with and has been popular is the hybrid solution. What's not popular is do-nothings and strictly on-prem. So if we could hop to the last slide, I'm about to hand it over to Nick and Rhett, and we'll get right down to the meat. My last slide, let me clarify that. Folks, we looked at the alternatives. You're looking at an alternative slide coming up, and so the idea was after the first webinar, we actually talked about potentially having a community-based solution by raising capital up on Kickstarter and other sites. I've had conversation with Microsoft and the OEMs directly, and to be brutally honest, it's almost like that IBM article I quoted to you from the Financial Times, where the lady CEO said that IBM has a hard time operating speedboats when they're a tanker, and that was a good line, because I think that may be the position Microsoft and Dell and HP and even to some extent Lenovo would find themselves in, is that it's hard for them to launch speedboats, and so it's more of a private sector solution. And then as part of my discovery, and shout out to Carl Pelacek in helping me in my research, he introduced me to Nick and Rhett over at Zynstra, and that kind of is when the Red Sea parted. That's kind of when we had the wisdom for the ages that we wanted about what is the solution, what is the chosen path, if you will, from a biblical reference. I've now made 2 trips to Bath, United Kingdom, specifically to meet over a period of several days cumulatively with the Zynstra team, and I even had Jennifer Hallmark from our staff come out with us on the 2nd trip. So we've had some very interesting strategic planning meetings. We've gotten to know them both personally and professionally, and that's kind of where we landed. And I guess what I want to is I hand off the talking stick to Nick and Rhett to talk about Zynstra and their solution, and you're going to hear a lot more from them over the next 12 and 15 months as we kind of ramp up collaboratively. But basically, doing nothing is not an option, number one. That's clearly not going to work. Number two, you need to appreciate, by the end of this webinar, you'll appreciate the couple of years of R&D and the intellectual capital or intellectual property that they've developed surrounding their solution, because it'd be very tempting to say, well, I can do something similar on my own. And by the end of the webinar, I think you're going to agree with us about the work they've done. So that's where we landed, and we'll just hop right into it. Time is of the essence. Nick and Rhett, are you ready to take the talking stick, sir, and jump on to the next slide?
Yes, we are, Harry. This is Nick East. James, if you could get us on the next slide, that'd be great. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Good morning, afternoon, evening. This is coming to you from Zynstra. Harry spent some time here. As he said, we've spent a bit of time talking about this, but I want to kind of jump into what the Zynstra solution is. I hope everyone will agree that we have a great solution at the end. I'm also okay if people disagree. You just need to get in touch and give us some time to get us your point of view. This is Nick East. I'm CEO of Zynstra. I have here with me Rhett Ryder, who's our VP Business Development, and Rhett will pick up from me on next steps at the end of the deck.
Hello, everyone.
Just thought I'd give you an intro to who we are. We're a software company. We're an ISV. We're HQ'd here in the UK. We are focused on delivering IT solutions to the small to medium business market, and we go exclusively through partners, through the IT channel. We don't go direct to customers at all. We're founded by software specialists with a good track record of success. We built together a business. The founding team behind this company built a software product business previously called Kramer Systems. We sold our product solutions through partners worldwide very successfully right across the world. So AT&T was a customer, out in the US, and Comcast all the way out to Australia and New Zealand and everywhere in between. Very familiar with building a product business and understanding also how an application, a product needs to be compelling both for the end customer, but it also in this market where partners are delivering the product and adding their own value to the product, it has to both technically fit the partner but also commercially. Everybody has to understand how they make money or nobody makes money. We are resolutely product focused. Harry's alluded to it. We've products and software specialists, and we have people here who've been working on the R&D of our solution for several years now, and that's all we're doing. It's a hand-picked team with people from the sort of hypervisor, kernel level of software development right up to IT specialists. We're also proudly have just won the most innovative product for small to medium businesses in the UK Cloud Awards. So it's not just me telling you that we're great. There's some third-party validation that we have a great product here. Jenny, if you could pass on to the next slide, please. What I want to do, just by way of introduction, I mean, there's lots of things I could talk about, and as Harry knows, I can talk for a long time about the solution, but I really want to talk about three things today. First of all, we believe that what we have is an opportunity to work with you as IT providers to address what we're calling here the SBS and 2003 disconnects, to also deliver you a long-term recurring revenue stream. And this last point is to increase enterprise value. What I mean by that is to own the value that the customer sees in your solution. I'm sure you all know your customers very well. We would like to help you show that customer the route towards technology transformation with our solution, and also by delivering better, more efficient economics in your business to save you money, to increase the enterprise value of your own business. Because I've got to prove that. I'm sure every software vendor you've ever spoken to says we can deliver you more revenue and save you money. So let's get into the meat of how we propose to do that. But first of all, Jenny, if you go on to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about technology change. I guess if we'd all been around about 15,000 years ago, the tools that we'd have used day to day are the ones on the left side of this screen. And they were pretty efficient tools. Fortunately for us, technology's changed a lot. The tools we use day to day is that mouse on the right hand of the screen, and in fact, increasingly that's a finger on a swipe on a touch screen. Technology change is good. It gives everybody more efficient capability. It gives everybody value. It tends to be incremental. Change happens stage by stage. We think technology is rapidly evolving, for sure, but it's an incremental evolution. And this last point is one I want to make about where we stand in the market today. It comes at the right time. I think Harry's made some references to IBM. It's true that cloud computing has been around as a concept for a long time, since at least since the 60s. But only now, really, we're starting to see it's the right time for cloud computing to come to market. And there are lots of reasons behind that, around associated technology and business models and commercial models, availability of broadband and so on. But there's a timeliness about technology that makes sense. I mean, Harry's done his 100,000 miles around the world, and I know because I've seen him a few times, he carries wheeled luggage around with him. Wheels have been around for a long time. Luggage has been around for a long time. But now is the right time for wheeled luggage, and that's why it was that technology turned up, because people are doing more straightforward airline travel, lightweight suitcases are around, little plastic wheels. So technology is all about the right time. If you could move on, Jenny, I want to talk a little bit then about the context of what's happening in the market today. What is the right time now? Well, some of you responded to the poll around a hybrid environment. I think it's true to say, and certainly it's true for pretty much every piece of analysis we've seen on the market today, whether it's from an analyst, a service provider, a software vendor, that we're living in a hybrid IT environment. Right? We have a combination, the vast majority of organizations today have a combination of some sort of service they run on-prem and some sort of hosted or cloud-based service. And it's our view, and at least it seems to be the market view, that will continue for most organizations. It will make sense to have a hybrid environment. So if you could do the next build. So if we accept that hybrid IT in some form is the new norm, there are technology decisions that we all have to make, and some of those questions that were answered previously should be clear. So I'm not sure if our poll here corresponds exactly to what we're seeing, but most of the IT vendor market would say, and most of the surveys seem to show that about 35 to 40% of small to medium businesses today are running 2003, Windows 2003 somewhere, which is end of support next July. There was a report out last week calling for something like 20,000 Windows 2003 servers every day to be upgraded between now and the end of the year, such that they're all, the end of July, such that everything is upgraded. So there is a disconnect, and somehow we need to work out what's next. And Jenny, if you could hit the next one. You might not be surprised given the nature of the webinar, but Small Business Server is a discontinuity. It's a product that's no longer for sale. And coupled with that, though, we see a forecast in the market. It's actually a Microsoft forecast that there'll be 28 million new on-premise servers for SMBs by 2017. So, Jenny, if you could hit the next slide. I guess the question is, in this technology cycle, SBS, Small Business Server, and obviously Windows 2003 were the right time. They were great products for the time that they came to market. They had all of the capabilities that people needed at the time, and I think many of the people, most of the people on this call will have built good businesses with their customers and a good revenue stream on the back of that technology. So the question is what comes next? And in the UK here, we are where we're live with customers and partners. We're currently visiting together with Microsoft and HP. We're visiting partners on a tour around the UK, talking about what the options are. And as part of that, we present what the Zynstra option is, and that's really what I want to go into as the next evolution beyond these capabilities. So, Jenny, could you hit the next slide? So really, there are two aspects that I'm going to talk about. Overall, we call this cloud-managed server appliances, and I think when people talk about hybrid cloud, that often means lots of different things. So I think if we talk about cloud-managed server appliances, hopefully the description will tell you what we're doing. First of all, we build appliances, single tower or rack-mounted HP ProLiant Gen 8 servers, clustered or not clustered. They're pre-staged with not just a virtualized environment, but a private cloud environment. The same sort of architecture from the hypervisor up that is behind a much larger cloud operation. For example, the sorts of technologies that sit behind AWS, the sorts of technologies that sit behind Microsoft Azure. This is what we've built in inside the private cloud platform. The purpose of doing that is to make sure, in driving down the size of this private cloud, is to make sure that for a small to medium business, we can deliver a very, very resilient piece of technology on premise, something that can be managed remotely and carries all of the sort of economics of support and application capability of a public cloud environment. So it's all pre-staged. It's not just a private cloud. It comes with IT infrastructure and applications. Much as SBS came preloaded with some Microsoft capabilities, so does our appliance. It comes pre-staged with, for example, network capabilities, security capabilities like intrusion detection, authentication capabilities, obviously Microsoft Active Directory, and also some other managed applications and the ability to be able to spin up Windows and Linux virtual machines to run any other type of application that the partner or the customer wants. Out of the box, our software team have provided full local backup across disks and across nodes, and also cloud backup. So everything on the box by default gets encrypted, and then using efficient networking management techniques, then backed up into the cloud, for example, backup into Microsoft Azure. What's more, optionally, the appliance can be DR'd in all its respects up into the cloud, and it's integrated, and increasingly we add more cloud integration capability at every cycle of our release. But to give a very concrete example, we are integrated with Office 365, such that the appliance users could be using any of the collaboration services that 365 provides, but also we can provide, if you like, a reverse backup, so that email capabilities or files in team sites can come back onto the local appliance and be backed up behind the firewall to provide customers an additional level of security for their data. So one part is the appliances. You know, I've got a picture here of a single tower. Maybe Jenny, if you could just hit one build, you see actually we have a range of both rack and tower-mounted appliances, all of which are based on HP, ProLiant, Gen 8 hardware that hopefully you're all familiar with. The second part of our product is this management platform, the cloud-managed part. Every time one of these pre-staged appliances is shipped to site, it dials back into the management cloud, it appears in the management cloud, and you as a partner can then manage it from the cloud. You can get all the way into the box to be able to run the usual tools that you're familiar with, and you can also see the status of all the checks that are going on. Again, I could talk for a great length about all of the good software that we have, both in the management platform and in the appliance to help you, but there isn't time to go into that detail today. Maybe just one thing that's worth covering is a place where we've put quite a lot of effort into our intellectual property, and that is to make sure that all of these distributed appliances, say you have a customer with 3 sites, or you have your 10, 20 customers, all of those appliances are kept at a consistent patch level, a consistent private cloud level, and a current patch level for any of the infrastructure and any of the operating systems and applications that are supported on that box. So the point is they all look the same. You get an economy of scale because every one of them is in an identical state 2 years after it was deployed, not just the first day it was deployed. It's part of the secret sauce and in fact is a technology that we have under patent. Jenny, could you move on to the next slide? So I want to just cover this very briefly. I don't want to get the impression that we have a particular religion about how much IT, how much data, how many applications should run on a customer's premise and how much should run in the cloud. In fact, I think that that question that's often asked, should I be on cloud or should I be on-prem, I think it's the wrong question. In my view, you know, if it works for your customer to have everything remote, great. If it works for them to have everything on-prem, great. You need to have options, though. And as a group of technologists, we like to have options whenever we work out what's best for a customer. And what we provide is an option. So we provide the capability to be able to have your IT infrastructure running on-prem, but managed by your partner from the cloud. And what's more, I haven't really discussed the commercials we'll come on to, but we operate a commercial model that's just like public cloud. It's as a service. It's OPEX basis. You pay by the month and you don't pay the upfront cost of the capital install. And that allows people to choose where do they lie. So on this kind of slider bar, we'll come on to it, but we have an appliance called SMB IT, and that one allows you to do pretty much anything you would want to on the box on the premise. You can spin up virtual machines of various sizes. You can run application loads like SharePoint and Exchange if you wanted to, or you can use a hosted Exchange, or you can use Office 365. So any application load can run. Whereas at the other end of the scale, we have an appliance which is just basic service on-prem, where most of the customers' requirements are perfectly satisfied by a remote hosted environment, whether that's something maybe you have as a hosted infrastructure, or whether it's something like something like Office 365. So you know, we have a range of appliances, and really we're not religious about how much data or applications run on cloud or on-prem, but we want to be able to provide simple, effective, efficient options for people to be able to run anything on-premise as though it was in the cloud. Jenny, could you move on to the next slide?
Hey, Nick.
Sure, Harry.
Yeah. Hey, Nick. This is Harry. Can you hear me? Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, in the world of artists, poets, and writers, there's nothing like, I guess, copying is a form of flattery, but I was going to say I love the sliding bar, the way you kind of can theoretically move the ball across the line to be more local or more remote. If you see that in one of my blogs, I'll try and give you attribution, but I just wanted to tell you in advance I'm probably going to steal your idea.
That's fine, Harry. Don't worry. And just so you know, I don't give the wrong impression with that slider bar. We're not talking about having cloud bursting here. I think for most SMBs that's not really a requirement. But that slider bar you can set pretty dynamically, because you can increase the size of the cluster that's on-prem by just adding another box to it. You can increase the size of what's in a hosted environment by obviously adding more virtual capability. So that slider bar is really about saying, you know, what's best for the customer at this time. We can change it in a month or 6 months. It's not really a requirement, I think, for people to be able to, you know, in real time move these loads for the sorts of customers that we're typically talking about. So on the next slide, you know, what we're laying out here is what sits on the box or can sit on the appliance, and what sits on the cloud. And I'll kind of whiz around as quickly as I can, starting on the center left. So we talked about having a resilient cluster with high availability and SLAs that support that, scaling as required. From a networking point of view underneath, we can do, we obviously offer VPN out of the box. We can do multi-site VPN. We have network gateway for doing all of the usual firewalling, DNS, DHCP, content filtering, and so on. Local security, including intrusion detection. We can obviously sit behind other networking equipment that's on-prem, but we provide all of that. User identity management, Active Directory, obviously, and out-of-the-box single sign-on or directory sync. If you're using Office 365 for the customer, then we use ADFS to make sure that's properly integrated. And classically, you know, file and print management. Maybe just a couple of things on the right-hand side there. For those SMB IT appliance boxes, we have managed applications. So if it's in our catalog of applications that we can deliver managed, then we can deliver them pre-staged on the box. We can make sure they're patched and current and consistent, and that set of applications is growing by the month. And then we have the infrastructure as a service container. So that's where we can deliver you virtual machine environments with Windows or Linux, so you have maximum flexibility to run and administer and configure and customize any particular workloads that you need to run on-premise for your customer. So that's all there on the box. And then in the cloud, we have our console, our keep current patching and updating, integration to Office 365, and via ADFS to other applications like Salesforce, and our automated cloud backup and disaster recovery as options. You probably noticed some of the coloring there, the green and the blue, really comes down to which of the appliances are in play. I want to make sure there's enough time for questions, so we'll move on fairly quickly. Jenny, if you can move to the next slide. I just want to touch a little bit.
By the way, Nick. Yeah, Nick,
sorry.
just a little housekeeping. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but folks, be sure to use the chat feature to ask your questions. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions today, so you're absolutely right. Let's rock. Thank you, Nick.
No problem. So just to double click, and again, anybody who wants to get into more detail, we're happy to do that. But really, I see what's on the appliance really in three groups. You see that note of platform applications. That's kind of standard IT functions that you'd expect to see, like Active Directory, like print services and internet gateways and so on. So that always comes standard on top of the private cloud infrastructure. Managed applications are those that we put together and install and pre-stage and configure, and we can help license through to the customer. And then the local applications are really the VMs, if you like, an infrastructure as a service that we can offer on the private cloud on-prem. And then everything else up here is really, you know, integration. So generic IT infrastructure workloads in green, configured workloads that are managed in that sort of orange cover, and then custom workloads in the light green color on the right. Jenny, can you move on? When an appliance is ordered, it's all pre-staged through our pre-staging partner. We're OEM'd with HP. We're very well connected with the HP team here in the UK and increasingly worldwide. So that enables us actually to create from a cloud pre-staging environment different lineups of appliances. At the moment we have three. We have our standard O365 Connect, which is one I kind of alluded to earlier. SMB IT Appliance, which is the more fully featured capability if you want to run more workloads on-prem. And then we have a specialist appliance, which we have in the UK at the moment called Education IT Appliance. We're also looking at ones that are apply apply, for example, to retail or hospitality. And those typically will then have applications or on the box or integrated that align align with that vertical. There's maybe just a quick point. I think SBS had a maximum number of users that you could apply. We don't have that, although we do try to line these up to align with a certain number of users and a certain user load. And typically what we say is, although technically we could go as high as you like, typically we kind of aim at anything from 5 to 250 users on a particular site, although that could be, there could be users across multiple sites. So we've got a number of lineups. Let me just move on quickly to the management platform so we can come on to some of the questions. So Jenny, if you could move on one more. Our cloud...
folks, again, we're seeing the question. Sorry about that, Nick. We're seeing the questions queue up, which is fantastic, folks. Be sure to use the chat feature and get in line to ask your questions. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thanks, Harry. So management platform is multi-tier. When you log into the management platform, you can see as a partner all of your end customers. Obviously, the management platform there on the left is doing its keep current and management and monitoring of the boxes. If there was any interruption to internet connectivity, the service for the customer continues to run. It's just the connection to the management platform and the monitoring that would drop. So it's very resilient in that context. Now, I've got at the bottom here end user. The end users can have a simple interface as well that shows the status of IT, and they can actually carry out simple actions as well. That's optional. It's up to the partner whether they should be allowing users to be able to have some administrative control over what users do. So we've aimed to provide them a nice simple user interface, and you can choose whether you deploy it. Okay, so can we move on to the next slide? We have, when we look at deployments, there are a number of roles, and the whole purpose of this is really to drive efficiency. And if you look at what's required when you deploy to a typical customer, you've got an assessment phase, an implementation phase, and then an ongoing management phase. And there are some experience here from how we operate a typical efficiency gain over other solutions. And really, this is where we have an ROI practice that enables us then to show you and to show customers how you get a much more effective service and a much better economy of scale. I'm seeing lots of questions queuing up, so I'd quite like to get to them. So maybe what I'll do is I'll skip over a couple of slides. Jenny, can you move on 2 slides? I just want to get to talk about the technology partners that we have. So if you could move on 2. We're working pretty closely with HP on the pre-staging environment and also on our ability to be able to drive more capability to partners on HP technology. And so we're very well supported by HP UK team. And also in the UK here, we're working closely with Microsoft on integration with the Microsoft Azure capabilities and also with Office 365. Jenny, I'm not sure we're seeing the slide here, but it'd be good if we can move on a couple. Yeah, one more. That's it. Okay, so I just wanted to maybe I'll even pause and finish there so we can come back and look at some questions. But essentially, I said earlier that it's not just me saying it in terms of the capabilities on the platform. We have great support here from both Microsoft and HP. And maybe Jenny, if you do one more build. The last time this webinar was run, the very first one, we were up at an SBSC event up in the northwest here, and we went into a lot of detail about what's in the box. So I can see the questions queuing up. We had a lot of similar questions in that session, and at the end of the session, that group tweeted out that it looks like a good way forward. can we move then just on to move on maybe 3 more slides, because I want to talk about what, before we get on to questions, about if we don't manage to satisfy all of your queries, what we do next. One more, Jenny, let's get to the aeroplane. So I just want to say, in the UK we are fully live. We have partners generating revenues. We have customers live, with customers who are operating very effectively here. If you're in the UK and you're an IT partner and you want more information, you want to get started, just send us an email to smbuk@zynstra.com. Jenny, if you do one more build, as Harry alluded to, if you're in North America, I think most of this audience is, we are putting together an advisory panel. It will start in June, and that advisory panel is really all about getting our product launched out to market with partners in North America in the fall time frame. So we're going to run an advisory. If you're interested in part of that, send an email to advisorypanel@zynstra.com. If you're outside UK and North America, you want to register interest, then send us an email at SMB Global. Rhett, I just want to briefly, can you cover off the advisory panel? Jenny, do you want to hit one more slide?
Yep. So as Nick said, hello, it's Rhett. The product is live, and our partners are generating revenues with their customers here in the UK, but we didn't want to assume that what's working here in the UK was going to work for you in the States without any modifications or tweaks. So we're really looking to work with those of you that are expert partners and SMB thought leaders to really help us fine-tune the Zynstra solution ahead of our full North American launch. So that's working with us to make sure the messaging and the collaterals, the pricing is absolutely spot on for you and your customers. So by signing up, what you can expect is to be trained in detail to be able to deliver the solution to your customers, and ideally amongst your customer base you'll have some SBS, WS3 customers who are looking to migrate, and also some of your customers who are interested in the hybrid IT solution. So we'll be able to train you up so that you can deliver that into your customers, and there'll be some very exciting advisory panel program incentives to help you with those deployments and encourage your customers to work with you to be the first reference accounts. Now, I think from that, you'll be able to start doing migrations for the rest of your customer base, gaining those business benefits that Nick talked about, and ideally providing feedback to Harry and the SMB community of your experiences and how you've gone on over the next couple of months. So, as Nick said, we're looking for your applications now. We want to start the program in June with the selected panelists, and we'd really look forward to hearing from you. The email, as Nick said, was advisorypanel@zynstra.com, and no time to lose. I'll hand you back over to Nick on that thought.
Thanks, Rhett. So let's come to some questions. I've tried to pick up on a few of these. I'm not sure we're going to get to them all, but if you have any questions coming out of this, please do email us or contact us via the mechanisms we had in the presentation, and we will get back to you. Commercially, we didn't talk about the commercial model, but it's an OPEX model, and we have only a buy price to the partner, not a recommended end user price, and that means that the partners are able to win with a competitive price and also make good margin on the service and upsell additional services on top. So I've had a few questions. I think there's some clarity required on exactly what the appliance is, and in particular some of the infrastructure capabilities on the box. So one of the questions I think was, is this basically Hyper-V with some other smarts on top? We are hypervisor agnostic on the virtualization platform. Although currently we use the same technology that Amazon AWS uses, which is the Zynstra hypervisor, and on top of that we load Linux or Windows virtual machines. Really, the smart is in how that architecture has been put together. Typically, you don't just there's a big difference between having a virtualization platform and having a private cloud platform. In a cloud platform, you have to be able to provide all of the relevant flexibility for changing workloads, for being able to provide resilience across boxes and across disks, and you have to have proper virtualization of networking, of disk, and of compute to serve out to all of the applications on the box. So, without going into the detailed guts of the technical architecture behind the private cloud on the box, what we've done is we've taken the same approach that is sitting in say an OpenStack public cloud environment or the AWS environment, and build, if you like, miniature private clouds that are autonomic. If you think about how Microsoft or Amazon or Google manage to keep their infrastructure up, running, and current in their big data centers, they do that with a very small operational team, and they have some software behind the scenes that makes sure it's possible to provision and manage and upload and do that with a great deal of economy of scale. That's what we built, but if that data center is distributed, in other words, there are appliances at different customer sites, it's our technology that's letting us provision, distribute, and manage those at scale. There's also some questions about integration with other backup. So we have, by default, we're able to back up into AWS and Microsoft Azure. We also have the ability to be able to back up into classic OpenStack Swift. If anybody has other requirements, it's possible for us to be able to point to other backup environments, but we need to have a commercial discussion about being able to enable that on a case-by-case basis. And I think we're running pretty short of time. I think maybe one question that came up there is about smarts, the smarts behind the platform. We're only focused on this platform, and that's really all about all you can do as a product company. You have a focus, and our focus is on building the best on-premise private cloud solution for SMB and the best management platform to do that from partners. That means we put a lot of thought and consideration into the architecting of both the smarts on the appliance, on the supply chain of how we build that, and also on the smarts in the management platform and the keep current capabilities that keep everything up and running at the same version. So that's where most of our sort of technology intellectual property is. And of course, we've worked pretty hard with the right partners. You'll see here HP and Microsoft in particular, to make sure we have the right commercial model and the right licensing model all lined up and can drive that economy of scale as well. Harry, I think we're running short of time, and I apologize if you have questions up there that we weren't able to answer. We have all of the questions, and we'll do our very best to get back to you as quickly as possible.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, let's do respect everybody's time. Appreciate that, Nick. And so, folks, bottom line is that we're in a disruptive period of technology, and it's just systemic. I mean, like I say, I'll go back to my opening comment about the Financial Times article on the new CEO at IBM. Couldn't have been more well-timed to pick up that issue just yesterday. And so, number one, you're not imagining it. Number two, doing nothing's not an option. Number three, I think is part of my travels and investigation, and let me put it this way. I made this comment the other day in Dubai that America, myself, we have a foreign trade deficit. And the reason I said that is that I'm learning more from these 30 executive briefings in 30 countries than I'm giving. And so there's a little bit of a trade deficit where I'm probably the beneficiary, soaking up like a sponge the feedback worldwide. Well, as part of that feedback, and I've routed through London to go to Bath. It's about a 90-minute train ride to the west of London. I'll be doing so again towards the end of the month on a swing back through. As part of that journey, I bumped into Zynstra, and I would offer this, and I saw some of the questions reflect this, and I've had these conversations, is can't I do it myself? Can I DIY what Zynstra's doing potentially? Bottom line is the more time you spend with these guys and the layers you peel back and you go further and further and further into it, quite frankly, for mere mortals, the other 99% of us, the answer is no. You can't do this yourself. They have invested significant financial capital to build up this intellectual property and what I'll call, Nick, almost R&D mode the past couple of years. And so that's kind of where we're at today is that the community reached out to me several months ago in various ways and said, what do we do? And I'm coming back with a series of answers. This is one of the solutions, and we'll continue to dig deeper into it. And so with that said, I guess that brings to my sermon to an end for this week's weekly webinar. Folks, thanks for joining us an hour earlier than usual. We'll see you next Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific as we do it all over again. You're going to hear a lot more from Zynstra and some other community members, and the slide you have up is exactly the outcome we wanted, is that Zynstra's trying to form together, put together a reference group. And there's how you participate. Email me individually if you want more information. And Nick and Rhett, thank you so much for your time. And I think you indicated you'll have the opportunity to take the remaining written questions and answer those up on email. Is that correct, gentlemen?
Absolutely right. And thanks again, Harry. And thanks for everyone's time on the call today.
Brilliant. Okay, so folks, have a great day. We'll talk to you later. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.